You're listening to Inside Lebo, a podcast giving you an inside look at Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania, produced by Mount Lebanon's Public Information Office.
Hello and welcome to Inside Lebo. I'm your host, Assistant Municipal Manager and Municipal Planner, Ian McMeans.
And I'm Rachel Windsor, Mount Lebanon's Assistant Public Information Officer and the Senior Editor of Mount Lebanon Magazine. Today's episode is brought to you by Troubers Jewelry. So today we're talking with two new faces on the Mount Lebanon Commission, Nick Petti, Ward 4 Commissioner, and Margaret Izzo, Ward 2 Commissioner. Congratulations both on your elections and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So, Margaret, I'll start with you. This is actually your second time on the show. You were on before when we did our episode on community mediation with your role as part of the what was Community Relations Board and now is the Community Engagement Board. So welcome back to the show. But looking bigger picture now that you're on the commission, what originally brought you to Mount Lebanon and when did it start to feel like home here?
I moved here 25 years ago to be closer to family, and I had a baby at the time, and I thought it would be an incredible place to live and also to continue practicing law with my law firm. And it started feeling like home right away. I remember the neighbors were extremely friendly and brought over baked goods, and there were parents groups that we could join and go to the park with young children. And there's block parties, so it was really instantaneously. I felt much more connected to people in Mount Lebanon than anywhere else I had previously lived.
Awesome. And Nick, how about you? What drew you here with your family and what keeps you invested in this community?
After I graduated with my master's in social work, I had done my field placement with the VA. And so after that, the VA had this, you could search for a job on their network, and there was a job out in San Francisco Bay Area at a little rural hospital out there. We bought a house out in California, but on a social worker salary, and my wife works in advertising. We couldn't buy it in the best neighborhood, so it was close to San Francisco, close to Berkeley, but the schools weren't really good. And so my oldest was going to a private school, and we had our second son, and we really kind of looked at it then to see, is this really feasible? Do we want to pay for two private schools, which is like almost a college tuition at 5 years old? And so we started to look at, I'm originally from Cleveland, don't hold it against me, but my wife's from Pittsburgh, and so we were always coming back and visiting both Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and I really liked Pittsburgh. The hills reminded me of the Bay Area with their hills too, and we really liked Mount Lebanon because it kind of had like a little city feel and a little suburban feel, and it was close to the city. It's like 10 to 15 minutes to get downtown. And one of the things that struck me when we were looking at housing, at houses, seeing crossing guards helping kids go to and from school. I mean, that is so alien to California. So we bought here going on 25 years ago, and just really loved it. My kids went through the school system. They're out on their own now, and very successful from the education that they received here. And one of the appeals was schools. And the second part of your question is, what keeps you here? Mm-hmm. Well, now that my kids are older, what keeps me here is the community feel of Mount Lebanon. Neighbors looking out for neighbors. We have a little network on our street in Fruithurst. We look out for each other. We shovel our elderly neighbors' driveways. We have Halloween parties together, giving out candy, go out to dinner together. And I just don't think you can just pick that up and go someplace else and try to create that wonderful feeling. And we have great library. We have great recreational facilities with the pool, the golf course, and all those things. I could go on and on.
That's a great story, Nick, and I think that's a common sentiment that we hear a lot from people. We heard it a lot in the comprehensive plan process with our community surveying, that people move here for the school districts but stay for the community. So it's a great sort of microcosm of the broader story that I think is common to a lot of Mount Lebanon families. So before either of you ran for commissioner, both of you were already involved in the community in different ways. Nick, your background in social work, and residents may recognize you from the library where you've been a volunteer with your therapy dog, Stella. So how did that kind of hands-on service shape your view of the community's needs?
Well, being a social worker, your main kind of goal is advocating for your client and their family, whether the client is dealing with physical illness or mental health issues or financial. You as a social worker are an advocate for them to try to get the services that they need. And I think that goes like hand in hand with being a commissioner, where our residents may bring an issue to us and we can then advocate for them to Keith McGill, our manager, and then maybe he can drill down to the department that really can help that individual, or if it's something systematic that we need to look at changing. So.
Great. And Margaret, you came to public service through a legal background and years of volunteer work, also including your work as a community mediator through the Mount Lebanon Civic Engagement Board. So how did those experiences influence your decision to run and be a part of the commission?
Yes, I felt as a community mediator, I had a sense of what are the issues are out there that people are most concerned about, things having to do with maintenance of their property, with transportation issues, noise issues, and that I felt I'd spent a lot of time studying the Mount Lebanon Code, realizing what is clearly a violation and what is a gray area and what's something you can negotiate. So I felt like I had a confidence that I understood some of the governing bodies and rules of the municipality, which made it easier to run.
Great, and you did a fantastic job, and thank you for all your work and service in that mediator role. So in part of that, with listening and problem solving that are core to the work as a both community mediator that we had through the Civic Engagement Board, but also your professional life as an attorney, how do these skills kind of translate into being a commissioner?
Yeah, I think they translated well because, as Nick was talking about, it's a lot of just listening, trying to problem solve, being empathetic, because sometimes there is no clear-cut answer. And then also I felt comfortable with knowing who to contact the municipality, like who's in charge of what area. And then sometimes my role is just educating the citizens about, like, I know this is really hard for you, but like this is what the law is, and it's something that, if you're interested in changing it, that's something else that we can talk about. But I felt that there was a good synergy there.
Yeah. And Nick, you mentioned a little bit earlier that you've worked with veterans and families and even hospice patients, and that really requires a lot of empathy and trust. So how would you say that informs your approach to leadership and decision making?
As I was running, I went to a lot of the commission meetings. And so one of the issues that came up was shoveling your walks. Mm-hmm. The way I think about that is, how does the elderly resident that lives in the community that may have physical limitations be able to get that done? Now, there's a wonderful program that has been created, Snow Angels, is it? Mm-hmm. That helps them. But I think about that issue. How does it trickle down to the individual? And, is there physical limitations where they can't do that or whatnot? So I kind of look at it from a granular level, from the person, how that, whatever we pass or ordinance, how does that trickle down to the person, individual? So that's kind of how I do.
Great. And since Nick mentioned the Snow Angels program, we actually have a previous podcast we did on that. So people interested in learning more about the Snow Angels program can go back and listen to that podcast as well. So Nick, staying with you, you have coached some youth sports in the community, worked with kids through the Tail Wagging Tutors program. Why is youth engagement important to you as a commissioner?
I think youth engagement is important because really our children are the future generation. So the more we can, through coaching in terms of teaching them how to work as a team, as a group to achieve a certain goal is very important. And with the tail wagging tutors, I do it completely kind of for selfish reasons. I mean, you could have a lousy day with everything that's going on in society. You hear all this bad news. And to take my dog and go to the library and spend some time with kids where they can come and read in a non-judgmental way to the dog, and it's just really a heartwarming thing. And one of the examples kind of that I was thinking about that when I was thinking about this question was, I remember distinctly one time we were there were two, usually one child comes up and reads to the dog. Well, two boys that kind of knew each other came up to read. And wouldn't you know, one of them kind of struggled reading and the other helped him kind of with the words that he might have struggled with. And so it was just really, that's what you kind of want to build as kids helping each other to improve each other. So, yeah.
That's great.
And on the theme of youth engagement, Margaret, you've served on PTA boards and worked with organizations that have supported teens and families. So what have those roles taught you about the needs of families in Mount Lebanon?
Yeah, that's great you mentioned Outreach Team and Family Services, because that really helps Mount Lebanon families. There's so many kids that need to have counseling and therapy. You know, as Nick mentioned, it's definitely like a hard world we live in right now, and it's an amazing resource because they have free and reduced cost counseling, and it's just right there on Washington Road. So it's very close and convenient, and there's highly skilled counselors, and it's something that we've had here since the 80s. So it's important to get the word out about that because it's a way that can really help. And in terms of families in general, when I was on the PTA executive board with the high school, like I was the volunteer coordinator, and I know that families just really like to be connected. So if there were events at the high school, often maybe your high school child doesn't really want you there, but if you're there as an official PTA volunteer, you can make a difference. You can see what's going on from a distance in the life of your child, and then also connect to other parents. So I just think it's important to realize that even as your children may get older, there's still lots of great volunteer opportunities, and you can continue volunteering for the community as well through all of our advisory boards and volunteer boards.
Great. So before we take a quick break here and have a word from our sponsor, just another shameless plug, since Margaret mentioned Outreach, we also have a recent episode with Outreach's service coordinator. So folks interested in learning more about Outreach can also go back on the Inside Lebo archives and check out that episode. So now a quick word from our sponsors, Trouvers Jewelry, and we'll be back with more from our newly elected commissioners.
Looking for that perfect piece of jewelry? At Trouvers Jewelry, you're not just a customer, you're part of the family. Locally owned by Mount Lebanon residents Rob and Kay Trouver, Trouvers has specialized in exquisite craftsmanship and custom jewelry design for over 30 years. Rob is an expert goldsmith, ensuring your jewelry is created with the utmost skill and care. Whether you're looking for something timeless or one of a kind, Trouvers delivers it all. Visit us at the corner of West Liberty and Piermont Avenue, or check us out online at trouvers.com. At Trouvers, it's personal.
Welcome back to Inside Lebo. We're continuing our conversation where we are with Nick Petti, the new commissioner for Ward 4, and Margaret Izzo, the new commissioner for Ward 2. So what ultimately motivated you both to run for commissioner, and what did you hear from residents during that process?
I guess what motivated me was Steve Silverman, who is the former commissioner, and he was there for 12 years. And I really enjoyed interacting with Steve. He'd come to block parties. I had some issues with structural things I wanted to fix, and he came up with a really great solution, and he worked with the municipality for an agreeable solution. So he did some mediation there as a commissioner. And so that motivated me, and then also being community mediator, gave me the comfort level. And from door knocking and talking to people at block parties, I really feel is the issue people bring up most is pedestrian safety. That's number one. I think it was also reflected as one of the top issues from the municipal survey that we did. So people are very focused, and understandably so, about making sure that they have sidewalks and safe sidewalks, and that trees are removed properly, and that there's maybe less speeding, that there's more traffic signals and signs. I'm grateful that we have the mobility board, that people can work through that board and work through their commissioner to, make some of their, issues and things that they worry about taken care of.
I myself, like Margaret volunteered a lot, gave of herself to the community. And that's the similar thing with me too, whether it was taking my therapy dog to tail wagging tutors at the library, or it was coaching youth sports, or getting involved with local politics with the Mount Lebanon Democratic Committee, or working on elections too. I was a poll worker, did that several times. Really wanted to give back to the community that I feel like gave to me and my family. So, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you both for being willing to volunteer your time to serve in this very important role. So as new commissioners that have just started in these roles, I'm sure a lot of times it kind of feels like drinking from the fire hose. There's a ton of information coming at you all at once. So what are each of you most focused on learning right now as you're just kind of starting off here in January?
I just think I'm most focused on learning the general process, which I feel I understand somewhat from the Civic Engagement Board, but how if a resident has an idea or a group have things that they want to see changed, the whole process of starting with going to a municipal advisory board meeting, communicating that, communicating this to the commissioners, the municipal manager, the whole direction, because being a governmental agency, it's really important that we have time for our citizens to be aware of any changes, and for they can express their views and have this notice and comment period. And I know sometimes people get frustrated because they're used to working within, a corporation or a not-for-profit or their own private business where you can make changes very quickly. But government, by design, does not work that way. And so I just want to make sure I fully understand what the process is for change in Mount Lebanon.
I think for me, one of the nice things was I'm getting to meet with each individual department within the municipality. Last year, I was part of the Citizens Police Academy, and then this last fall I did the fire departments too as well, to really just get my arms around what our police offers and does for us, as well as the fire department too. And that kind of prompted me to get all my smoke detectors and a fire extinguisher in my house just to be super safe. So learning about the different departments, what the reach is, what they're doing, was just very informative, as well as I'm kind of reading the Mount Lebanon strategic plan and then the master plan for our parks. And I was offered, and so is Margaret, it's called Newly Elected Officials Course that's offered through Allegheny County, where you learn, a lot about how a municipality runs.
Great. And so what would you say for each of you are your top priorities for the municipality in 2026?
I think one of my top priorities may be, what is reflected in our municipal survey, which is very comprehensive, and what people have talked to me about, which is having a safer community for pedestrians. In terms of talking to people, in terms of reading survey results, that really is number one. And I know it's something that our community, the municipality, is committed to, and I look forward to working on for that.
Great.
Very similar to what Margaret said. I am passionate about our ability to walk safely in our community, because we're a community of walkers, whether we're dog walking, which I do almost every day, or people are running or cycling or whatnot. I'm really so happy with the sidewalk expansion program that we have are continuing to do. I know that by Foster, when they were doing that, it was a little bit of a struggle with some of the homeowners to get their buy-in to the program. But once it was done, they really were, it was a positive thing for them, and they were utilizing that. So I want to see that expanded. That's one of the things I'm very passionate too about, as well as our parks too, making sure our parks are someplace where our kids and our families can go and enjoy themselves and get exercise. So those are some of the things that I'm kind of focused on.
Cool. It is kind of amazing, living in the community too. You're absolutely right. We have a very active community. Like, I drive home, from taking my kids places at 9:30 at night in the middle of winter, and you'll see people out walking their dogs and going for jogs and things like that. It's amazing how active our community is sometimes. All right, so let's see here. So another question for both of you. Do either of you have any kind of long-term plans for your terms while you're in office?
Let's see, as Nick mentioned, the parks and recreational facilities, I see that as a long-term plan, just because I know it can take so much time sometimes to make changes and to develop some of the ideas that many of the constituents have. I live not too far from Bird Park, and I've always just loved walking my dog through there. It's wonderful to have this little bit of nature, the center of Mount Lebanon. I have noticed it's just taken years and years to make changes in Bird Park and to have trails that we can walk through and having new trees planted and getting rid of invasive species. So I do look at the parks and recs, and we do have a plan for that, as something which is more long-term. And I definitely appreciate everyone's, the communities, their patience in terms of making changes, but it's important to have a master plan, a general goal.
In agreement with Margaret, I know that we're facing some big issues as a municipality with our South Garage that we need to take down and replace. So I know that's a big issue that we'll be focusing on in the future. But also, also making sure our fire department and our police department have the resources and the tools that they need, as well as hoping to continue that MRTSA provides wonderful services to our community through ambulance service as well.
And how can residents best engage with each of you and stay involved in local government?
I know that we both have an email address, which you can find when you go online. And that's, a great way to reach us. And then, often email exchanges may turn into phone calls. And we also appreciate it when citizens go to advisory committee meetings and speak up if there's something very that they're specifically involved in. I know there's some people I met through door knocking, and I was really encouraged when I saw some of them actually come to advisory meetings. And I think, for at least one of them, there was a successful resolution to the issue. So often appearing in person in front of people who are working on these decisions can make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's powerful that, your voice can be heard by, stepping out and coming to one of the commission meetings if you're passionate about an issue, or if you can address it in one of our subcommittee meetings, whether it's park and recreation, which I'll be the commission representative on, or if it is, I'm drawing a blank on the rest of them, but any of those that folks can get involved with.
Perfect. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to speak with us and for serving your Mount Lebanon constituents. For our listeners who want to stay informed, attend commission meetings, or learn more about local government, you can visit mountlebanon.org, that's mtlebanon.org, for more information. Commission meetings are typically held on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month at 8 p.m. in the municipal building, and the public is welcome to attend in person or on Zoom.
that's all for this edition of Inside Lebo. Congratulations once again, Margaret and Nick, on your election and swearing in last week to your new positions. So looking forward to working with both of you as we move forward in the future. And thanks to everyone for listening to this edition of Inside Lebo, sponsored by Trouvers Jewelry, produced by Marsha Morgenstern, with music by Drew Monyo and graphics by Amy Robinson. Be sure to subscribe for future episodes, and we'll see you next time with more from Mount Lebanon.
Thanks for listening to Inside Lebo, produced by Mount Lebanon's Public Information Office. Learn more about all things Lebo at mountlebanon.org or by following our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages.